Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to take a look at some longer term trading on the YM, on the USE minis. In this example, we'll be using 15-minute charts with the hourly for the trend. But as usual, we start with our risk disclaimer and remind you that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades are actually taken, they're just shown for illustration and training purposes only. Remind you there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. Put another way, all professional traders know and understand, but more importantly accept, that losses can and will and do unfold. That's the same for any approach that always will be losing trades. So I want to have a look on the YM. This is on a 24-hour chart, and the trade setup I want to have a look at is this TS3 sell setup that's unfolding here. There was a nice VS setup here a bit earlier as well that's unfolding, but the one I want to look at is this TS3 sell. So is MTPredictor a black box system where you just take all the setups blindly as if it's a mechanical system, perhaps in the direction of our MTP trend, or is it something different? Well, for you who've been you guys who've been following us for a while will know it's something different, and the reason we do a different approach is because markets are basically random half the time. So 50% of the time basically you won't get any clear clean pattern. So of course the question arises, how on earth do we know when we're in the good or the more predictable, clearer pattern? Well, for this we use the higher time frame chart. So here you go to a time frame between 3 and 5 time frames higher. So if you're on a 15-minute chart, you'd go out to the hourly chart. If you're on, say, a 3-minute chart, you go out to the 15-minute. Say a daily chart on perhaps stocks that we had a look at in our last video, you'd go out to weekly. Now for this, you then go back to previous pivot highs, and we've talked about which ones to use in our training webinars. So I'm just going to use training mode here, and I'm going to jump back to around here somewhere. So here's the previous pivot high. So if you right mouse click, do decision point, can you see how that was on your chart in advance? This is important because it shows you that there's an area of potential resistance before the market gets there. In other words, a leading indicator. If I now turn training mode off, can you see what the market did? It went up and it hit that level. In other words, it made a meaningful reversal at the anticipated level. So the market is basically doing what you anticipate. In other words, the picture's clear on the higher time frame chart. So now if we come down to the time frame we're looking to trade, which is the 15-minute chart, can you see how suddenly the picture becomes clear at this particular point in time? In other words, you've got a sell setup here at the 15-minute, so on the 15-minute time frame at the 60-minute resistance. So this would have been a good sell setup to take. Our MTP trend was grey to show you were in the process of making a reversal, and so that was a good one to take. So let's say you missed that and you wanted to have a look at ones later on. You can see there was a potential buy setup here. Of course, this was one to avoid. First and foremost, it was against or coming against our large degree trend, which was now down. You see down off this resistance. Our MTP trend was red as well, so that would be against it. But what about this one here? So if I now use our trading mode and I go back to have a look at what this was like at the time, it's always good to see what these were at the time. That's what it looked like at the time. You see here it looks a nice clear clean picture. In other words, the market made a meaningful reversal at higher time frame resistance. It made an initial decline down. It's then made an ABC correction up. Our MTP trend is red, so the picture is clear, and this is what we're looking for. We're not looking for anything that is a bit confusing or you're unsure about what's going on. We want to have pictures or trade setups where the picture is clear. So if we do a right mouse click here and do analysis, you can see this is our potential trade setup. And this is our favorite trade setup, which is a W3 trade setup or Wave 3 trade setup. So what does this mean in particular? Well, because the market made a reversal at a higher time frame resistance here, the initial decline off the low would be considered a Wave 1. An ABC correction here would be considered a Wave 2. After a Wave 2, we're then anticipating, we're not projecting, because of course markets can go into a random phase and then change, but we're anticipating that the market's then going to make a Wave 3 decline. Therefore our target is the typical Wave 3 WPT. And this is why we like these trade setups, because a wave 3 is typically the strongest and longest in a completed 5-wave sequence, therefore represents the potential to have the largest profit in relation to the initial risk. Remember, we use correct position sizing to keep your initial risk small and under control, and obviously you can set up different size accounts to take that into account as well. So let's see how the market is doing now. If I turn it off, you can see the market is declining nicely. It hasn't reached the first target yet, but it's declining nicely and is going down here quite well. Any reason why it's potentially pausing here? Well, yes, if we go back to the previous low, we do decision point. It's bouncing around in and around potential DP support. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if we find a bit of support here before it's then rolling on down. Why do we anticipate it's going to carry on down? Well, if we go to the higher time frame chart again, where's the next support zone of the higher time frame chart? Well, ideally it should be off this low here. So there's your potential support zone, as you can see again in advance before the market even gets there. This is live data coming in here at the moment. So if we go back to our 15-minute chart, can you see how our 60-minute support coincides with our typical wave 3 WPT down here in this area? So this would be a good logical area for our profit target. As I said before, because markets can then go random at any point, there's no guarantee that's going to get there. That's why we never actually know where markets are going. That's why we can't have any certainty with where we're going. The only certainty we have is on the entry. And this is a mistake most amateur traders make, is that they try and force where the market's going. The only thing a professional trader can do is control the initial risk, which is what we do here, and then anticipate and manage trades. So over time, you have enough trades that have large profits in relation to small initial risks. And that's what MTPredictor is all about. We're not about a black box system, because we believe they don't work in the long term, because basically markets are random about half the time. But what we're looking to do is we're looking to then come in when a picture is clear. In other words, when everything's coming together to give you a clear, clean picture, as in this case, where we have the market making a meaningful reversal at higher time frame support or resistance in this case, that then gives you a nice, clear, clean pattern to then give you an automatic trade setup on that particular time frame. And that's what we're looking to do with MTPredictor. So here's an example that's unfolding on a slightly longer term chart. This is a 24-hour chart of the YM on a 15-minute time frame with a 60-minute for the larger degree support and resistance. So we'll have to see whether the YM does indeed carry on declining as the day continues, and see whether it does indeed reach this target a bit later on today.